Well, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell told Republican senators that he was delaying the vote on the GOP health care bill until after the 4th of July. Now, this comes as a disappointment to many Republican leaders who are all but looking forward to passing the bill this week. Also, President Trump's associate, Roger Stone, is set to testify in regards to the Russian probe. Joining us now to discuss this and ongoing health care battles and Russian investigation, we welcome now our political commentator and the owner of Retrovision Media, Lee Bynes, to the studio. And Lee, good to have you.
Good to be back.
Look, let's get right at it. First of all, the GOP not having enough votes in the Senate to pass the health care bill. 9 are presently holding out. We know that they want to have this done before July the 4th, but the truth is many are wondering whether or not July the 4th, during the July the 4th break, is going to be a lot of pressure put on these 9 to really get back and vote in the affirmative.
Well, it's going to be as much pressure on the 9 by the administration as it is on the 9 by their constituents, who they have to answer to over the course of the next few days, that there is no bill, there is no vote, and as far as I'm concerned, there is no way forward. I'd like to pose this possibility or this perspective that I certainly have said on this show many times that I don't think the Republicans or the GOP ever had a bill in mind in the first place. They've had 7 years to come up with an idea, a plan, proposal that they could put forth on day one to tell the American people this is what health care looks like. Thus far, we have absolutely nothing. The fact that they're fighting amongst themselves, the Democrats are not in this picture whatsoever. Any expectation that the Democrats would want to play a role in this is quite is far-fetched at this point, simply because of the fact that the Democrats' position on this issue is well established. If anything that they're going to be involved with is going to be to repair Obamacare, not replace it. One of the things I think I also like to mention is that I think that both sides of the issue are of this issue is a little bit disingenuous on the Democrats' part as well, because if you look at the bill that's been proposed by the House as well as the Senate, the big gorilla in the room that's really driving up costs and making sure that healthcare is primarily unaffordable for a vast majority of Americans is the pharmaceutical industry. Because if you take a look at the prices that drugs cost in America, because here's the deal, in a lot of countries that the same pharmaceutical companies are selling their products here in the United States, they're not allowed to sell for those prices in Canada, in France, and in the Great Britain, but they're allowed to do it here simply because we have this free market system that with literally no controls on capitalism whatsoever. Other countries have made carve-outs. They do have a free market system going on as well, but they have carved out basic tenets of how they're going to support their communities.
Let me jump in here right quick and ask a question, walking back for a second. Because when
Sure.
we talked about the president met with Senate leaders.
Yes.
And he had that independent meeting with Senate leaders. Of course, the press was right there. But noticeably, on the right hand and the left hand, 2 people who voted not in favor of the health care proposal. Political pressure, yes or no?
Well, it's going to be a substantial amount of political pressure from the White House to get these folks to come on board. But again, if they are voting with their conscience, if they're voting with their heart, if they're voting for a bill that they can say that President Trump has said that he wants a bill with heart. Well, anything that's being voted on right now is anything but heart. In fact, I would say it's the exact opposite. It's heartless. I took a look at some of the numbers and the way it shook out. If this bill passes, which I'm absolutely certain it will not in its present form, is that someone who's 60 years old with an income somewhere around $56,000 a year, under the Barack Obama plan, that was your fees, what out of your pocket would be $5,800. If this goes through, for that same individual or individuals, they would be paying $20,500. That's the jump, 75% increase. Where these people are going to get that money if they plan on eating throughout the course of the year is extremely unfortunate.
Yeah, let me bring it up to speed here. Roger Stone, who's also a longtime associate of President Trump, is set to testify next month in the Russian probe. Now, we know that Roger Stone says, listen, when it comes to Russia, there is no collusion. There is nothing wrong here. But what can we expect to see from this? Is it going to hurt or help the White House with Roger Stone being able to testify?
Difficult to say at this point because most of the testimony that's going to come forth in the very near future is going to be off camera. It's going to be behind closed doors. With regards to what he has to say, he's looking forward to, or so he says, to have this event public because he wants to be able to publicly confront or contest what Podesta had to say in his hearings yesterday. Now, Podesta was under oath when he made those statements. So Roger Stone has been coming out saying that he wants to refute those lies. If any lies are being told, we're talking about another he said event, and there's no way to go any further with that until the investigation has reached its conclusion. So that being said, a lot of the information coming out to the contrary by the president, fake news, and things like that will stand until we get something more definitive.
You brought up the word fake news. I want to go right there because I know that you had some interesting commentary to say with regards to the president's allegation of fake news.
And it's not that I want to defend the media or what we do to give the public what they need, but I think there needs to be a little bit more pushback on what was said at the press briefing yesterday, simply because CNN made a huge mistake. CNN had the middle road with regards to political talk. Everybody knows where they are on MSNBC, Fox News, it's a given. But CNN had been trusted, and when these three reporters made the mistake of advancing a story that they didn't really have all of the facts on, they gave the Trump administration a foil to work with, to give them a gotcha moment. See, we told you this was all fake news. But what I'd like to do at this point, there was two very, very enterprising New York Times reporters, David Leonhardt and Stuart Thomas. They did a Stuart Thompson. Right. Yeah, there you go. You read the story. They did a comparison of all of the. They listed all of the lies, verifiable lies that Donald Trump, not his staff, Donald Trump said has espoused over the last 5 months since he's been in office. This list, I'm sure that your audience can't see this 10-point print. I had to do that to get all of these lies on 7 pages, and page after page after page, he's been found out about for telling mistruths. So if you have that the president has almost told a lie, and a big one, on each and every day that he's been in office for the last 154 days, I would match that against what CNN and the so-called fake media has been doing, because they've been, I think at this point, the media is being held to an extremely tight standard. And so any mistake, the slightest whatsoever, gives the Trump administration ammunition to call everything that's being said about him negatively as untrue. And that's a very, very dangerous place for us to be as media people. It's a dangerous place for the country to be, because when you get down to the bottom line, the people have to believe somebody. Eventually, somebody has to maintain the trust. And we're in some very, very dangerous territory right now. So I would say that if I had to bet on the media doing its job, and I had to place that against Donald Trump's record for telling the truth, I would stick with the media right now until proven otherwise.
Lee Bynes, our political analyst, also the owner of Retrovision Media. Thanks for coming and sharing with us.
Good to be here.
Of course, we'll look forward to seeing you next week.
I'll do it.
All right, look, taking a quick break. We'll be back with more shows. Stay with us. We're coming right back right after this.